About Greta.
Yeah. So Greta Hamlet was the following mashal. He said there was an eagle that had to take the children had to cross this lake or whatever it is. There was this whole to get it to the other side. So it held the child.
Right.
So the eagle asked the child, says, "What are you going to do for me? I'll take care of you. I help you. I'll do everything for you. I'll take care of you in your old age. All this." Says, "You liar! You're not going to do that. You're going to have your own family to take care of." So he dropped the kid, and the kid fell to its death. Then it went take another kid, another one of the, and again takes it, holds it in its claws, flies with it, and again asks the child the same question: "What are you going to do for me? I've helped you." There's nothing. Drops the kid. Then takes the third kid out. So he says, "Nusu, what are you going to do for me?" "I can't guarantee anything, but one thing I'll tell you for sure." So he says, "I'm going to raise my kids just the same way that you raised me." Took the kid across. The notion that we put in koiches, we put in great effort into the generation that comes after us, we won't see it.
That's choni.
That's choni. That's choni.
That's choni.
So just saying that it's profound on many different levels, so that's one of them. What we do, we don't see in our lifetime. I think about one of the great leaders of history. The Baal Shem Tov created this whole revolution.
Right.
It's very small in his lifetime.
He said he didn't see it.
He didn't see it. I mean, he saw, he had not a small group of people, but he didn't see what eventually so in such numbers, his ideas took hold over. He didn't see it. And a person, in the life of Rousseau Salanter in the Musar movement, I don't think he felt he had a small group of Talmidim in his lifetime, really great changes he didn't see. In fact, he left Lithuania because he felt that really he was ineffective.
This is Choni. Choni commits. Choni just commits suicide.
But he didn't see it in his lifetime.
But Choni did see it because he came back.
Yeah, he did see it. But he's saying he's not. It's a world that had changed, and it's not his world anymore. Sometimes you have the whole idea of this death or companionship. That a life without companions is really it's to be a loner, it's too painful. And he didn't kill himself, but he asked Hashem, have mercy on me.
Well, that's effectively.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
He's the same fellow who makes these demands on a Kodesh Baruch Hu, right? And he wants with the water, right?
Yeah, but it's just it's profound on many levels. But they didn't see. But the people, But this is the carob trees. You don't see it, and the world has changed. What you've done, has changed the world, but it's in a different world. You don't belong in that world.
Yeah.
The world that you are going to contribute to doesn't exist yet, and you don't belong in that world either. But nonetheless,
that's a little scary. That you create it, but you don't belong in it.
You don't belong. It's a different world. There's we tend to view things, as Westerners in evolutionary terms. We always think of progress.
Right.
It's a beautiful sentiment, and many things in terms of technology, we do see progress. In terms of human behavior, if you lived through the Holocaust, evidently a person who lived through wouldn't in terms of the hopes that evolution would create a better human being were not met and have not yet been met, and yet looking just aside.
Have you read Viktor Frankl? He was a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
But he saw great things
he saw the greatness of individual people.
Yeah.
But the society that produced Beethoven and Mozart, that produced the great poets, totally.
Yeah.
So it's there may be in technological terms, in terms of our understanding of mathematics, of science, just our understandings have grown. Human. Take music, for instance.
Right.
The music. There was. I remember I came to Detroit, and there was a classical music station.
Okay.
It took just a few years, and it stopped. There just weren't enough people.
Right.
Just as
But 150 years ago, the counter argument. This is my counter argument. I think mankind has progressed. 150 years ago, they were selling black slaves around the world. Nowadays, the concept of slavery is totally. Now, I'm not talking about Jewish slavery. I'm talking about the slavery where they're selling people.
Yeah. So there definitely been changes, and some of them positive. But on the other hand, like some of them makes it very negative. Look at family life, and how bad. And this is no way defending the institution, but how bad the situation was with the slaves. Or let's say assume the situation right after the slaves were freed in the 1860s, 1870s, the time of Reconstruction.
Right.
In the black community, there was a sense of family.
Right.
There was a sense of they felt that they had to do something right now. At least there was enthusiasm. Today, and it's because of various factors. Today, over 2/3 of all black children are born out of wedlock.
That's right. Yeah.
What kind of a society that we've created a whole society which is just dysfunctional, totally.
Right. We have that in our own community. We have in our own. But I'm thinking more when I was saying.
I'm just saying. So there's there's a lot of different
we wouldn't want to go back to that time.
Right, but there's a lot of. I guess this is the post-60s generation, where you had that sense that, even precocious oil, just throw off the yoke of responsibility,
right.
Just be yourself, which created the whole sexual revolution. A lot of casualties. To this day, there's a lot of casualties. There's a whole change in terms of relationship of husband and wife. The fact is, for various reasons, the majority of women are in the workforce today.
Right.
And a career path has been a real is not only an option, but really is the ideal. At least the girls are taught in the schools that this is their ideal.
I was talking to the Rosh Hashiva about divorce. I'm divorced, so we've gone through, and there's just the amount of divorce and the reasons for divorce are. The Torah gives a solution, right, to the problem, right? Divorce is it's a mitzvah, but it's not one that you're supposed to go running to do, right?
Not one of those mitzvahs.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you have to, there's.
Right.
But nowadays, people, they're unhappy. And it's always the other person that there's no self responsibility. That's
part. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So just saying about the progress. It's not. In different areas, yes, and in different areas, there's a real lessening of it.
Right.
So you find a person of one generation, he goes to the next generation, just totally uncomfortable. It's just not my generation. And I can't be effective in this generation. I heard a beautiful, beautiful word from. There was a Rav in Detroit, sort of Grubner. He was also Rabbi Lowy here in Toronto, his son-in-law. So he was when he came from Europe, and he came to Europe, and he came to Detroit, to America. On the way, he stopped in England, and he spoke to Yecheskel Abramsky, who was the Av Beis Din there in London, and eventually he had been a Rav in Europe, and eventually moved here to Yisrael. Tremendous Talmud chacham. So Dayan Abramsky told him the following. there's the Gemara really brings this. The Moshe Rabbeinu was commanded to make chatzitzos, to make trumpets. But it was only, those trumpets were only to be for himself in his lifetime. He was supposed to only use them, and they were to be hidden.
That's it.
So Rabbi Bromsky wanted to talk about the symbolism. And then anytime you're dealing with symbolism, you're dealing already with hypotheses. You're not dealing with, it's hard, unless there's a clear statement. So he wanted to say the following. The trumpets symbolize that's the leadership. It was with the trumpets he brought when he had meetings, he brought the leadership, he brought the entire community. This was his means of communicating to the people. And besides it was used in the Beis Hamikdash, it was used in time of war. But in terms of his personal, but it had there was something personal to the trumpets, the chatzitzos, that these were that he used to communicate with the people. His generation was a generation of the Exodus. It was a generation of the wandering in the desert. It was a very spiritual generation in the sense is that they were in a cocoon. They were fed the mun. They were protected by the Anan and Kovod. They were given the Berish and Miriam in terms of water supply. It was really it had evidently probably it was an alternative universe, so to speak. Scientists speak about at least the possibility of other universes that have to deal with other laws, and it was an alternative universe, so to speak. It's a different world. These were the people who heard the Ten Commandments.
Right.
They were there. His successor, Yeshua, dealt with a whole different generation. Not only did they necessarily see or experience all that they had, but the circumstances were different. They were a nation at war. They were a nation that were going to become farmers. They were a whole different world. The leadership style for that would no longer, in the generation of desert, would no longer be successful in this new generation. You needed not only a new leader, but you needed a new leadership style. Maybe perhaps the goals are the same. The goal of things is to do tzaddikim.
Right.
That's the goal. But the means and the way of communication are different. That's why the chatzitzos, the trumpets, as Rabbi brought, the trumpets were retired. It's a message to Yeshua. It's a new generation. You have to, the clarion call is on your own trumpet. You can't use the trumpet of the previous generation.
On the same, I'm thinking of the Gemara with Rabbi Akiva, right? And Moshe Rabbeinu gets to go and look at right? And he says, I don't understand what he's talking about, right? He's all upset, right? But it's because emotional Sinai, and so I'm not lost here.
Yeah, but Rabbi Akiva was for that generation, or for whatever was
right.
Those talents for that. So you have somebody, just getting back, you have somebody who was a seminal person in his generation. He couldn't have, in the other generation, he laid the groundwork, but his work had to be changed. The Hasidic movement is very different than the Hasidic movement of the original Hasidic movement. It had to be. And what was good and was positive in the initial stages, not necessarily were good or positive in the later. He used much of the thing, but it had to be transformed. Take a business. The ones who create business are entrepreneurs.
Right.
They are dreamers, gutsy people, willing to take risks, not necessarily people in terms of, not necessarily statesmen and diplomats. They're fighters. And they create a company. But stage 2 demands a whole different set of talents. And the founders aren't necessarily good preservers.
Right, that's true. There's starters, maintainers, and then there's the people who end it.
Right.
You need enders too.
Yeah, and things have to change. The goals ultimately are the same, but the means, the tactics, the strategies change.
What about this? Okay, so now
Yeah.
What about nowadays? How does this all tie into what's going on now?
Now it's a fascinating. It's just very, very interesting. It's hard really to know how things are going.
We're in the middle of it.
Right, that's right.
You never see, right?
You never. It's very.
There's the issue between the yeshivish and the not yeshivish, but the goals are the same. But
Right.
it's almost like Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai. I see the similar. I don't know if you.
Yeah, but there is a certain parallel. There's a certain parallel.
Yeah, but they need Rava needs everybody needs right.
Yeah,
Abai needs Rava needs Abai. Shammai needs Hillel. Hillel needs
It's
Shammai.
interesting. One besides the approach was the difference. It's interesting that they make another sort of Nosson quotes this, that Beis Shammai felt that his Talmidim, he was very selective with his Talmidim. It was small, it was a group of elite geniuses, who had all of the special qualities that you want in a Jewish leader, and that's what he expected of his students. Beis Hillel was much more liberal. He said there are many people who came from modest backgrounds who developed into great people. We're going to offer that opportunity for them as well,
Right.
not just to the elite.
But Hillel himself came, and his whole story of how he.
Right, he was very poor, and we don't
very
know about
challenging.
his family. He came from very challenging circumstances.
He was
a
descended
dint
from.
of his, yeah. Well, he was descendant. I mean, he did come from Beis David. He did come from, but he. There's England is full of people that are titled,
Right.
that are impoverished.
yeah.
The approach was different, and there's certain generations that need a certain approach and another approach. I believe in this. Just going back full circle to when we started off, Rabbi Gamliel's approach was very similar to Shammai Hazakin's approach in terms of the preservation of that it has to be. We have to create an elite.
Right.
And that elite will go and save Jewry. The others who took issue with him says we have to make it available to everyone.
Right.
The people, when they enter the 400, they
400 to
filled
600.
up, right? They were Talmid Chachamim. If you're not a Talmid Chacham, you can't go there.
Right.
You can imagine a Rosh Hashiva is giving a shir in a yeshiva to his Talmidim. Okay, let's open it for everybody. No one's going to understand it. In other words, you have to have a requisite background to understand the shiurim and the discussion. There were alternate yeshivas. There were other yeshivas. It was not the official yeshiva.
Right.
The official yeshiva.
Well, it wasn't the Sanhedrin. Like Yavna was the Sanhedrin.
Right. The Sanhedrin. So Yavna was the Sanhedrin, but it functioned as the yeshiva as well. It wasn't just the Sanhedrin in terms of it had a dual function.
Right.
But there were other yeshivas.
Because they use the term base. They seem to use the term base medrash, and Sanhedrin.
Yeah, because they
and
used it
Yavna.
it really had a dual function.
But I'm wondering.
It wasn't a Sanhedrin in terms of the judicial sense. They didn't deal with the, with capital crimes.
Well, they couldn't because they were outside.
Yeah. So there was no. In that sense, the Sanhedrin no longer existed.
But there's a story that the Sanhedrin moving to 10 places.
Yeah, right.
Right.
So in that sense, they're the Sanhedrin.
Yeah.
But they didn't. That in that.
It's very confusing. It's all there, but I haven't figured out how to decode it yet. I haven't figured out what's really happening.
Yeah. So it is the same group of Sanhedrin that if it had to been the capital crimes, they could judge capital crimes.
Right.
These are and they're given smicha, and they do deal with other issues as well. But he wanted those who were part of this as an elite group, and there were other yeshivas. And there are other yeshivas evidently in Yavna too. But they were just not the yeshiva. the official thing. And they learned, and they were Talmidei Chachamim. So he said, but they will not be the Musmachim, those will not be this. We are, this is the leadership, this is the future generation. The others are out of the pale. And there was Rabbi Yeshua, Elazar ben Azariah, evidently had different things, and felt that like Hillel,
right,
that it should be open. And those are the 400 and the 700. Right. I can't just think. I don't believe it's. There is an incident. You can look more in Lamed Ches and Bava Kama. It's not. I think just simply it was this. There was a philosophical question here.
These people were too great. See, I'm coming from the approach that these people were brilliant, right? Rabbi Gamliel was unbelievable. He was so politically astute. And when I say politically astute, he knew how to deal with the Romans. He knew how to deal with people. Not politically astute in a manipulative way. And Rabbi Yeshua was brilliant. Rabbi Gamliel made all these takanas. Remember with the slave. And Rabbi Yeshua was brilliant. And then you had Rabbi Kiva running around there, and as part of it, and he's going back and forth. And he was the Chacham, and Rabbi Yeshua was the Abbeis. I want to tell you one more. I understand the difficulty you're having with what I'm saying is, see, if you look at, I was sort of looking at the American model. Where did the American government get its model? Like, where did the founding fathers and Americans get their model? They have the legislative branch, they have the judicial branch, and they have the executive branch. Well, you have the Nasi, which is Rabbi Gamliel, who's the executive. You had Rabbi Yeshua, who was the judicial, and then you had Rabbi Akiva, who was the Chacham, who was the legislative, because he was the one that was.
But it's not. The Chacham was really part of the thing. He had
a role. He had a title.
He had a title.
Because you see the same thing happening with Shimon ben Gamliel and Rabbi Meir, and the same fight going on.
But still, what's with these are titles within the thing. Ultimately, just how Rav Isaac Halevi has it, he wanted. That's what Nasi is. His whole theory is. Betzim the Nasi, and it was the position. This is his whole theory that the position of Nasi was created during the initial time of the Zugos.
Right. Yeah.
This is his whole theory.
Yeah. And there's sources. There's sources for that all over.
Yeah, but this is his. Really, this is really his thing.
There's a Mishnah. There's a Mishnah in.
The thing about this, one is the Nasi, one the Abbeis, but he said the existence of Nasi never existed.
Right. Okay. Right. Oh, okay.
Because the position of Nasi is he is the Nasi of the Sanhedrin really is in the place of the king.
Yeah.
The Gemara speaks about, in terms of the Reish Galusa and the Nasi, who is going to bring the Yudalfa and Beis and Horias, that if they theoretically, if they would have sinned, and there's a special korban, the sawyer, the male goat, which is brought uniquely by the Nasi, would Rebbe Yehuda Nasi qualify for that?
Right, because he was descended from David.
Right. This is not the Nasi. A Nasi is a political position. In other words, he has power over people.
Yes.
We know there's one thing is a Gemara in Lamed Zion in Gittin. We find that Rabbi Gamliel is the Av HaYesoimen, that he took care of the monies involved in the social thing.
Right.
It was, we find Rabbi Yehuda Nasi more Daf Ches and Baba Basra is distributing tzedakah monies during the time of Mishnah's B'Tzoros. He is the room of it became really like the government of exile of the Jewish people. Its authority comes from Sanhedrin rather than an independent king, but ultimately it is part of the Sanhedrin. But he's not just a Rosh Hashiva within Sanhedrin. He's
power.
See, in Canada, so Rabbi Isaac Halevi, and also this told us where I'm going in his footsteps. Why does it say that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was not appointed to be the Nasi? He was appointed to be Reish Masifta.
He created a new role.
He has a Reish Masifta. It's really because he has a dual role in the Sanhedrin and outside the Sanhedrin. They really wanted to take him out of within the Sanhedrin. We find other Nesiim, subsequent Nesiim, years later in time of Amoraim, Yehuda Nesiah II and on, who was like equivalent to Reish Galusa in Babel. It was the political power divorced from the Sanhedrin itself.
Right.
And he wanted to say that they did not take away the position of Nasi from him. They took away Reish Masifta from him. Because that already is, when it comes to the halacha,
That works well. That works well in the with the Gemara. No,
right.
But how do you feel? Like I don't. This is the first I've heard this.
Right. So and he said they didn't want.
So
they
how do you think? You think it makes sense?
Yeah. This is how. I mean, it's a brilliant approach. But when it comes in like this, what was really, and it's the same issue when you have Rabbi Shimon Gamaliel, the Gemara, and Horus, and Yud Gimel.
Right. Yeah.
It's
Great
a very
story.
similar kind of a thing. And I discuss it if you listen to those lectures I have on that website. The question is like this, and really, again, it's very similar, not the exact approach, to the question of how many Talmidim do we allow in this yeshiva. Right. They felt that it was important for the prestige of Torah as a whole.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That the Nasi, even though there may be greater Talmidei Chachamim, of course, the Nasi at that point was a great Talmid Chacham.
Yeshua, though, was clearly a bigger Talmid Chacham than Rabbi Gamliel.
There may be greater Talmidei Chachamim. He is the Nasi. And he is the Nasi, and therefore, just the honor of the position warrants that everyone be subservient to him. This was a real tension. He says, you know what? We created this position to be basically a political position. It had a dual role. That dual role has to be muted. And you should give, he says, and it's not, you're not furthering, those is the service of the perpetuation of Torah by having someone of a second rank leading the yeshiva and defining what the halacha should be and where. Let the political area be given with the power from behind it to a person who represents the family but the other thing has to be given within who they feel should be the most qualified for the position.
In Canada, we have a legislation. The legislature works different than the Americans. The Americans, you choose the president. Canada, you take the party with the most power. That becomes the leader of the organization, which is sounding exactly what was happening. A similar model was used in the time of we take that model from there, I guess I would assume, where they choose, because Rabbi Gamliel didn't leave. He said, "Okay, my job's over. Fine. Now I'm a regular guy, right? Regular guy being."
Yeah, he didn't.
He didn't leave for a second. He says, "Yeah, my job's over. Okay, I'm no longer fine."
Yeah, but it was so. But how Rabbi Isaac Halevi has this. That was only the whole question was who is going to lead the yeshiva. The Nasi who's going to take care of the moment of Yosoimim, who's going to take care of the tzedakahs, who's going to dealing with the Roman government was not taken away from him.
Right.
But so within the yeshiva itself,
that was the
thing. But they replaced them, and that was